Put down some turf starter on this, and I've been asked recently, like, what is the difference between a turf starter and other fertilizers? Why do you have a spring summer blend and then an autumn winter variant? Like, what should I be looking? Actually, you know what? Before I go any further, I'm going to move this grey water hose, because knowing my luck, I know I've been through it in a previous video of, you know, slow release versus controlled release fertilizers, but like right back to basics, there's a reason why fast release fertilizers are not sustainable for you to use. So a fast release fertilizer is one that's like gives you that rapid green up and growth. They typically only last about 3 or 4 weeks. So if you're going to reapply those every 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to exceed the amount of nitrogen you should be applying to that plant annually. So they're not a good option for you. They're cheaper, absolutely, but they're not a good sustainable option. There are better options out there. There's options that end up being like, there's slow release obviously and controlled release, which are similar but work differently in terms of their technology. They often have a coating which sort of inhibits the release over time. Then there are also, those products are more expensive, so you pay for that obviously. If there's more that goes into the process of manufacturing that, then obviously you're going to pay for that. Okay, so I've got 2 fertilizers here. I'm just using these for the video. Don't worry, it's not a sales pitch. You can buy whatever brand you want. I'm just going to tell you what to look for and why. So first and foremost, turf or turf grass needs, I think there's 16 nutrients in total for it to be healthy. Sorry, of those 16 nutrients, there are 9 that are required in larger quantities. So they're the ones that we call macronutrients, macro meaning large, and then the remaining nutrients are required in much smaller quantities, so they're called micronutrients, small, smart. Now just because some nutrients are required in smaller amounts does not mean that they're not as important. So if you have a deficiency in a micronutrient, it can cause just as much damage to the turf health as if you have a deficiency in say nitrogen, for example. So your 3 main nutrients, or the 3 numbers that appear usually on fertilizers, are your NPK ratios. So where N stands for nitrogen, P stands for phosphorus, and K stands for potassium, as per the table of elements, periodic table. So first and foremost, nitrogen. So that is for your color, your growth. So not just your root growth, but also your shoot growth. So your actual leaf growth. Your phosphorus is root development, particularly with seeding and establishment, but also ongoing root development as well. So phosphorus, for example, is very, very, very important when you're looking at a starter fertilizer. And then finally the K, potassium. Potassium is like the strength of the plant. So it strengthens it against disease, against, you know, drought tolerance, the tolerance of cold weather as well. So I'm hoping that in your head right now you're going ding ding ding, it's about to start getting cold, therefore you might need more potassium. In terms of like your granule or your prill, it really depends what height you're cutting at. So if you're cutting say 5 mil or lower, then you'll need a greens grade prill just to get it through the canopy. Because of the slow or controlled release pattern, that means that it doesn't break down straight away. So you want it to be able to sort of sit down into the soil. And so if you're using a standard granule fertilizer like those larger ones on a golf green, obviously it's going to sit there and it's also going to burn. So you don't want that. This one is a mini prill. What I like about these products also is that the prill size is consistent, it's uniform, or homogeneous, if you will. And that is preferable to, I wish I had an example, but I've had fertilizers before that have like, they've got larger granules and they've got smaller ones, then medium size, and they're sort of a bit of a bitzer. Still decent products, but their granule sizes are different. Now, just going on physics, I guess, those larger granules are going to weigh more, right? So their mass is going to be greater. So typically what happens is they'll settle to the bottom of the fertilizer bag, which means you don't really get that even distribution. And then add to that, then you're going to put that in a fertilizer spreader. Again, it'll probably settle to the bottom of the fertilizer spreader, meaning on your initial pass, you're going to be putting more of whatever that granule represented. You're going to be putting a higher concentration of that out in that particular area. So you are better off looking first and foremost for a prill size that suits your cutting height. And then secondly, have a look if you can. A lot of the websites will have like a picture of the prill indicating its size, but also what it's made up of. And see if you can get something that's homogeneous, meaning all the prills are sized pretty much the same, because then that's going to be better for your distribution. You're not going to get more nitrogen in one area than the next. In autumn and winter, probably the two nutrients that you should focus on the most of making sure you incorporate them into your program would be potassium, for all those reasons that I've just gone through, but just basically strengthening the plant to get it through winter. And then secondly, have a look at an iron product or a product with iron in it. Iron for the color over winter. And iron also can help strengthen the plant as well. So those are probably the two nutrients that I'd be looking at to bring into your program. I know that there's a lot of retailers, every single retailer will probably sell a fungicide. I'm super reluctant to use them. I think that there are ways that you can try to battle fungal issues just, with sharpening your mower blades, getting the dew off the surface. What else? Aerating, using wetters using surfactants at a certain time, especially if there's rain events and things like that, and using high potassium products. That's my personal opinion, that fungicide use should be a last resort, especially for the homeowner. So that's where these sorts of products come in handy, and again, you can get them in whatever range it is that you're comfortable using. So this one's sort of like, I guess the products out on the market that'd be maybe not equivalent but sort of similar would be the likes of, like, there's Phosphiter, I think there's Control PK, I've used that one in the past. Basically a liquid product that's quite high in phosphorus but definitely high in potassium. That's what you want to be starting. If you haven't already, that's something that you want to start incorporating into your program, and you might find, especially if you deal with, if your lawn is susceptible to dollar spot or, I don't know, grey leaf spot, whatever it might be, you want to start incorporating a product like that and just see how you go. You may not see that disease pressure as much. And then finally, this is a product that I'm going to start using. We've started getting some dewy mornings. Now what happens essentially is when the weather starts cooling down, there's the formation of dew and everyone's seen dewy grass. So there's basically water droplets forming on the turf, and the issue is it can turn into a quite humid, muggy day, and that's sitting up on the surface and is basically becoming a breeding ground for fungal disease, especially things like dollar spot. So you can either sort of remedy that by like wicking the dew off or using your garden hose or something like that. If that's not your cup of tea, then a product like this is perfect. It's sort of like think of it as like a ceramic coating for a car, if you will. You apply it to the leaf blades, so it's a foliar application, and then that sort of prevents dew from forming, which in theory should then stop you from getting those diseases. Yeah, I don't actually know any other brands. Obviously ICL Dew Smart, they do that. So those are sort of your options for that. I don't actually know of any. If you know of any others, feel free to comment them below. Got some really cool projects coming up. I've got a collaboration with Andrew from Egan's Greens coming up with a massive Tahoma 31 project that's going to be amazing. And I've got some special guests coming up soon to visit to try and install the install the turf plots. So yeah, heaps coming. Have a good weekend. Catch you next time on Lawn Care Australia.